All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Stephen Earth Metz. I'll be talking about chakras a little bit today. And of course, if you guys ever have any questions or something comes up where you're like, what is this? What does it mean when you say the element of this chakra or something? Feel free to ask. But let's go around. Why don't we go around in a circle and just, so you can say like your name and what you like to do. It doesn't have to be what you make a living as, but whatever comes to mind. I teach yoga, as you guys know, for a living. So just for a few minutes, I'll talk a little bit about the chakra system. It's kind of part of the whole yogic. How many of you guys have heard of chakras? You all heard of them? Okay. And so not too much? Okay. So the chakra system is, although there are different chakra systems, a lot of people don't know, there's actually, chakra means wheel. And technically it means, in the context of yoga, it means like wheel of energy. Okay, but a chakra technically that's the direct. There's two definitions really. There's chakra, wheel, and then there's also like the energetic centers of your body. Okay, so the way it's often referred to in the West is basically like that each center of your body has a different energetic and chemical makeup. Okay, so to try to explain it in sort of modern terms, I always use so there are 7 chakras, and the 7 chakras start at the very base of your spine and they work up. I'm sure some of you have seen photos of the colors. They're usually like red, yellow, orange, green, blue, indigo, right? So there's like, they have different colors associated to them. And a lot of this stuff is kind of like very mystical sounding. A lot of people are like, yeah, the chakras. It's often made fun of. Like if you watch any comedy and someone's into yoga and then they talk like, usually the chakras are all made, they'll make fun of the chakras and stuff. And I grew up in the West. That being said, the chakra system is actually a really valuable tool that you can add into your meditations and your practices. And so one of the best ways to really connect with like the idea of what a chakra is especially for people that aren't that into them or don't really study them, you all have probably been on, let's say, a roller coaster, and you go down really fast and you feel this sort of weird feeling. Well, where do you feel it? Like when you go down fast on a roller coaster, where do you normally feel that? In your stomach, right? Right? You feel butterflies in your stomach. Now, what's interesting about this is that 9 out of 10, and out of the hundreds of classes that I've taught in this particular field, I would say 98% of us would say they feel butterflies in their stomach when they go down a roller coaster really fast. And what does that feel like when you, like what emotion is associated with that feeling?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline? Fear. Okay. What else? Anything else? Joy. Okay. That's interesting that you say joy. So that's interesting so what's interesting about the chakras and why I find them fascinating is because from whatever walk of life and whether you say you believe in them or not, they're still a part of your being. They're there because you inherited this body and you inherited this life form. And because you did, for whatever reason, and whether you believe in the inheritance of it or whatever, that's a separate subject altogether. Every one of us has experienced a very similar chakra feeling. And so each chakra has a different, so the stomach is related now, and the yogis have mapped it out. So the stomach chakra relates to energy, the feeling when it's empowered, it's power, so empowerment. Solar plexus, we call it in the West. It's energy and color is like the sun, so it's sunlight, which is life, right? Because without the sun, there would be no life on this planet, literally, right? And without your stomach, you wouldn't be able to take food and convert it into fuel. So it is literally the combustion chamber of your body. So you could say that it's like a working hypothesis, the chakra system, although it gets into like a lot of details, but that every single energy center of your body is very real and tangible in some ways, and in some ways completely metaphysical. And then it's a matter of whether you believe in that or not. Okay? But I always use the stomach chakra because that's the one that like it's just everyone has that experience with it. And so like fierce pose, you're asking me about fierce pose. One of the main sections you have to engage when you do fierce pose is your stomach. You have to engage it. If you don't, it actually ends up, usually it starts hurting your lower back a little bit. So fierce pose and fear are related. And then when you're teaching yoga, you can also talk about that chakra and use it as a sort of teaching method. Or if you have a friend who has very, very low energy, maybe that's an imbalance in their third chakra. Maybe they have and that's the same thing as saying, maybe they have a digestive issue too. So a chakra is not necessarily a hyper metaphysical thing. It's also a really physical thing and very tangible, whether you're into metaphysics or science. Because on one hand, it's very metaphysical, because there are various, like gods associated with a certain chakra and things like that, and colors, and whether you want to get all into that or not is a choice, and to what layer you cut into it is up to you. But so we're going to start, so I'm going to just explain, starting with the base. So the base chakra is your root chakra. It's called Muladhara chakra, and it literally means like root chakra. And the root chakra is related to, oddly enough, releasing, right? Releasing the past. How many of you have a friend? I have a friend who is completely stuck in the past. Completely. And I'm not saying I don't judge him by it. I'm just saying that he lives in the past. Like this place, in a way, is sort of rooted in the past, right? You could say. And so when you have a friend that is stuck in the past, and that's root, right? What is a root? Root is something that's stuck in the ground, right? So that's the root chakra. And when you start working with yoga and these more kind of meditative elements, you start using these chakras as sort of a working element. Let's call it a body of work that you can use to then deal with various human challenges that you may have. When that chakra is imbalanced, the ability to live in the present, to release the past. You ever have a friend that holds a grudge? Imbalance in the root chakra. Now this is just one method, one way to look at that stuff. And then there's also the physical elements of it, like, for instance, having issues in that area, right? That's also an imbalance in that chakra. And then, so when you are grounded, that's a balanced root chakra. So that's another way to look at it. Svadhisthana, the sexual center of the body. Its color is like a saffron orange color. When your creative flow is there, when you are driven to write and paint and draw and sculpt and set decorate and create a new choreographed sequence, and that would be a balanced creative center. Some people think with this center only, right? We've heard that term. Presidents oftentimes can think with that center, and people in general can. And when you are driven only, do you have any friends that may be a little imbalanced in their sexual chakra? I know I do. I definitely have friends that they cheat on their wives or cheat on their husbands or whatever they're. So that would also be an imbalance in relation to that particular chakra. And then you also have like the work organ for a specific chakra system. So for that one, you would just if you take in a deep breath, hold the breath, and you squeeze the perineum and sexual organ muscles. So try that for a second. Take a deep breath. Hold the breath in, squeeze, and then pulse it 3 times. Right? So imagine you're charging that sexual center. Now, we're not going to do that too much right now, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how you can wake up that center. Okay? So that's called the work organ for a chakra. That's the only reason I was teaching that right now. It is used in tantric sexuality and stuff, but we're not gonna go into that too much right now. And then the next one, I'm just explaining it from a little bit more from an academic perspective, and then maybe we'll see how we all feel if we want to continue on, because I know it's a beautiful day and probably want to hike as well. Manipura chakra, so the stomach center of the body, the energy center of the body. That one is also considered to be it's part of what's called the lower triangle. So the root chakra, second chakra, and third chakra. It's the energy center of your body. It's where you take food and make it into energy, literally. Also should probably mention with regards to the Svadhisthana chakra, it's procreation. So of course, the second and then third chakras are related to procreation, creativity, and the ability to manifest in the physical world. Okay? So the power center of your body one of my friends described power as the ability to take an idea and manifest it in the physical world. Okay? So that would be one definition of power. Because without being able to actually manifest it, then it's just creative thinking, right? Which is not necessarily bad. But the power center is the third chakra. So if you're feeling low on energy, if you're feeling fearful, oddly enough, fear, butterflies in the stomach, right? That's related to the third chakra. And then also, fear and excitement are also related to the third chakra. So when people say like excitement, fear and excitement are the same in the body. Like they actually trigger some of the same responses. The fight or flight responses, adrenaline, right? Those are related to fear. And those are directly related to the third chakra. So there are parallels between science and the chakra system. Some might say they're just kind of different words for the same thing. Then we have, moving on, Anahata chakra, the heart chakra. Almost the same word, except with ana in front of it, but the hata, right, the Anahata chakra. So that relates to, so it's, I didn't get into the elements too much because I'm abridging. The element is air, right, of course, because your lungs are there, right, so you breathe. That's the work organ for the heart chakra, okay? And the heart center relates to, what would you guys think it relates to? What would you say it is?
Love.
Love, right. So love, relationships, right? Your relationship to yourself, the ability to give, the ability to say no as well, oddly enough, right? Because you could be so imbalanced in the heart chakra that you give too much, right? How many have friends that do that? I do, right? I think I give sometimes too much. I've been on the short end of a deal many times, and I'm like, karma, it's okay. What goes around comes around, right? But that can be an imbalance in the heart center. Could be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to know about that. That you give too much sometimes. It's important to find a way to, if you can't treat something scientifically, then maybe you need to treat it metaphysically, right? When all else fails. That's usually when I come in. People are like, I can't get this guy to stop stalking me. What do I do? I've tried everything. And I'll say like, have you tried this? I'll give him a sigil and a chakra and a meditation and like other things to deal with it. And it's crazy how often it actually works. It's really weird, but we found it to work probably 9 out of 10 times, a lot. Okay, so because your brain is just, there's so much, your brain is both a receiving dish, but it's also a transmitter as well. Okay, so Anahata chakra, relationships. Where do you feel we even say, I can't date right now, my heart was just broken, right? People say that. That's the heart chakra. So there are exercises you do for the heart center. And again, we'll do some exercises. But I want to move on because I can talk about this stuff for a very, very long time. The throat center, speaking of talking. So the throat center relates to when it's in balance. It relates to being truthful, clarity of communication, the ability to communicate what you wanted to communicate. How many of you have ever said something you didn't want to say? You're like, I'm going into this relationship. I know I'm gonna tell this person that in the nicest way possible that I don't want to date him or her, and I'm not going to say this, this, and this. But then you go into the conversation, and they start poking at you for some reason, and all of a sudden you're like, and you're lazy, and you're this, and then you said the exact things you didn't want to say. That's an imbalance. The lack of control over the throat chakra can get you in trouble, right? Hence the saying, loose lips sink ships. Throat chakra, right? So again, it's like when we're able to communicate, when we're able to, and I say this in class sometimes so that we may hear and speak the truth when necessary, right? That's a critical thing for the throat chakra. Of course, the exercises, there are a bunch of different ones, but one of the ones I really like is like when you're doing a pose at the very end of class, on occasion, I'll have you bite your tongue, actually. So you take a breath, you go like this, try it. As the saying goes, bite your tongue. Exhale. Like that. That's the meditation for that. And you do that over and over again until you finally learn, whether through pleasure or pain, you learn the control over the mouth, right? Has anyone else had that experience where you said something you didn't want to say? Right? Many times, right? Couldn't we on a daily basis, maybe we all need to do a catch your tongue exercise, right? Just like that. So basic stuff. And again, like none of us are perfect. We all have our flaws, but there's a balance to them. And sometimes if you've ever been around, I have a few friends that have very little filter when I hang out with them in public situations and even on Facebook. And I have to be very careful, knowing that and where I go and to what tolerance level. Like I have to keep my spiritual practice strong enough to be around that situation or not. So like I have to be really prepped to deal with the fact that I'm going to walk in the room and he's going to say something like, it's so offensive, I can't even say it, actually. I can't even. This is something really nasty. Just think of the nastiest thing and then amplify that by 5. Okay? It's so inappropriate that I can't even say it. Okay, so the throat chakra you can chant. So, of course, you can chant Om, you can chant, and gently open your eyes. All right, so that's a buzzing. Did anybody get a little giddiness? For some reason, for me, when I do that one, I get giddy from that one. Different meditations, they feel differently. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. I just know that they feel different. So the next one, Ajna Chakra. The Ajna Chakra is the third eye center. So it's like its work gland would be the pineal gland. It of course relates to clear vision too. So like there's also this sort of fundamental, may I see and think clearly. May I have the 3 eyes, intuition, imagination, inspiration, which is technically the 6th chakra. When it's imbalanced, then it is your mind is imbalanced, your creative thinking processes are imbalanced, you're seeing clearly. How many of you have been around someone who wasn't seeing and thinking clearly? Right? All of us. That we could say, probably, even ourselves at times. We need the friend, maybe through our college years or something, right? Where you're not thinking clearly. No, whatever. You can't drive right now. You have had too many spirits. So it's time to not drive. I'm taking your keys. They're not thinking clearly. So of course, chemicals can affect the chakra system, obviously. Sometimes it's that basic. I like to think of this center predominantly related to intuitive thinking. That's what I try and cultivate when I think of the Ajna chakra myself, and to also not have it so dominant that I keep the yoga practice and my relationships at an academic distance. Because as you study yoga a lot, sometimes it ends up being in this academic field, but there's no practice. There's no meditation. There's no, like, you're not doing the practice. That's why I tell teachers, like, you have to do some practice. Even if you don't do classes, you have to practice some. Like even in, well, for me, I have a big steam shower, so I practice in my steam shower in the morning, which sounds a little weird, but you guys all do hot yoga, so you know why I would do steam, right? Okay, so any questions so far on these? No? Okay, great. Next one is Shasrar. So Shasrar means the 1,000-petaled Lotus chakra. And that's like your whole mind. Like that's kind of the way that, and again, like a lot of this stuff does come down to opinions stuff too. So there are books that will have other opinions about it, which someone else wrote that book. But when I talk about the Shasrar, I think of all the chakras lining up and then feeding the seventh chakra, which is your mind. The whole functioning of your whole system culminating in your mind. And so 1,000-petaled lotus, the 1,000 petals, the way I translate that as the 1,000 petals is like more than thousands. It's like billions of thoughts that your mind will think and its capacity. And not just your mind, but the mind of the whole internet and all of the lifetimes that have been before and all of the lifetimes that will ever exist, and all of that knowledge is related to the 1,000-petaled lotus chakra of the mind. Because whether we're aware of it in this lifetime or not, we have inherited certain traits from our ancestors, including the animals, right? Because even in the sciences, they say we started off as fish, let's say, but even earlier than that. And even one could argue the whole planet started as space dust, right? So even if you look at the sciences. So your mind going back, but maybe even universes expand and contract over and over again. Maybe even our planet was already inherited by other life forms before the dinosaurs that were sapient beings. Even those ancestors, right? And even maybe the energetic, since they say energy doesn't die, it just changes form. Maybe even the energy of the particles of dust that make us up in our human bodies. Maybe those have traveled through space for billions of years, formed the whole Milky Way and the galaxy, and now all of that, those molecules and the wisdom that created you as a being, maybe you also are part of that. And that's part of the 1,000 petals, right? So the 1,000 petals is symbolic. It's the infinite wisdom that we inherit as beings. We are sapient beings, right? We are cognizant of ourselves. We are self-aware, which is what they say separates us from other beings, other animals on this planet, according to old traditions. But one might say, actually, there still is no separation, because in fact, they are our ancestors, right? In science, they say, right? And actually, there's a poem, and I'll end with this last poem. I lived for thousands and thousands of years as a mineral, and then I died, and I became a plant. And I lived for thousands and thousands of years as a plant, and then I died, and I became a fish. And I lived for thousands and thousands of years as a fish, and then I died, and I became an animal. And I lived for thousands and thousands of years, and then I died, and I became a human, becoming. Tell me, what have I ever lost by dying? And with that, my friends, on that cheery note, I leave you. Okay. So.